120 kilometers from Abu Dhabi lies a notorious prison for political prisoners and prisoners of conscience. Located in the middle of the desert, Al-Razeen prison is getting cramped with more activists, as calls for civil rights are getting louder across the United Arab Emirates. While the UAE authorities say the prison is more like a residential detention center, open to human rights organizations, those who have served time at this maximum security facility have a different story to tell.
الحادث اللي حدث مؤلم جدا لجميع السعوديين.
Since 2011, when widespread uprisings rocked the Arab world, Al-Razeen has been used for muzzling voices of dissent. In the same year, 69 well-known human rights lawyers, academics, and student leaders were sent to Al-Razeen following an unfair mass trial. They had signed an online petition demanding greater rights and democratic reforms in the country.
15 unannounced guests arrived one day, bringing gifts of terror and pain. Roughly, they brought me down to the ground. Will I ever see my wife and sweet children again? Leaving behind a broken home, I've been taken where everyone and no one knows. These bright lights aren't the ones I hoped for, though that chill does feel like death's breath. I scratch at my coffin, but how long I've been dead to the world I don't know, with no company save for that in my head. Barely treated as human, we skeletons aren't left undisturbed. It's not right that skeletons can bruise, can bleed, can scream. But I've seen the battered bodies, the shattered bones and broken spirits to know, never knowing when it's coming, who or what they've chosen next.
Years of torture and human rights violations have earned the Al-Razeen the nickname of the Guantanamo of the UAE. Despite pressure from outside, the UAE has not ratified the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which imposes a complete ban on torture.
Authorities are extremely sensitive about Al-Razeen prison. We only know what we know based on the testimony of inmates who have subsequently been released and spoken about their experiences. It's a detention facility most often used for political prisoners, that's democratic reformers, critics of the government, people searching for democracy within the UAE. It's also used for genuine people accused of terrorism. It's referred to as the government's Guantanamo, the UAE's Guantanamo. And that's because its main purpose appears to be to psychologically break inmates through the use of psychological torture, physical torture, harassment, threats, intimidation, and isolation.
According to a recent report by the International Campaign for Freedom in the United Arab Emirates, Al-Razeen authorities regularly torture prisoners using a wide range of methods, including beating with whips, sticks, and electric cables, removal of nails and hair, and threats of rape, among other things.
What's absolutely outrageous is that we have a lot of people in this facility that are essentially lawyers or activists, and they're being kept in a facility that essentially has no human rights oversight whatsoever. The inmates themselves have been told that it's a black site, and they're off the map, they're off radar, they're off monitor, and that any possible human rights violation can be committed in this facility against them with complete impunity.
Prisoners of Al-Razeen are regularly sent for long periods of time to solitary confinement. The psychological effects of solitary confinement are well known. It might damage the brain and can cause psychosis, hallucinations, paranoia, and suicidal thoughts.
Solitary confinement is a hell in its own right. With no light, no bed, imagine the complete darkness day after day. And inmates are often left naked on the floor in extreme conditions, either the extreme heat or sometimes air conditioning is pumped around the cells so that they're freezing for days on end. They're often denied food and water, and they've got absolutely no right or mechanism to appeal against the treatment that they're experiencing in the prison. There is no legal avenue or otherwise until potentially in the future they're able to take action outside of the jurisdiction of the UAE.
Meanwhile, security guards at Al-Razeen are mostly Nepalese, with no Arab language skills, leaving prisoners unable to communicate with them. As a torture technique, music is played at extreme volumes uninterruptedly to break the mental health of prisoners. In one case, in November 2015, Dr. Mohammed Al-Rokan, a human rights lawyer who is serving a 10-year prison sentence at Al-Razeen, fell unconscious as a result of being exposed to loud propaganda music for hours. By many reliable accounts, prisoners at Al-Razeen are tortured and threatened with rape, chained to their beds by guards, whipped and beaten by prison staff, fed food not fit for human consumption, made to suffer in 50-degree heat, have cigarettes stubbed out on their skin, starved of daylight for days on end, kept in cells with up to 80 prisoners, and deprived of life-saving medication. According to a 2017 report, Arab organizations for human rights in the UK, insects such as ants and cockroaches spread inside the cells, leading to disease outbreaks and rapid transmission of infection among detainees. This, along with poor nutrition and bad food and outbreaks of insects in the food, led to most detainees suffering stress and diabetes.
Some of the reports that we've received over the years have been absolutely shocking as far as torture is concerned in the UAE, and particularly in this facility. We've received reports of torture including beatings with whips, with batons, with electric cattle prods. There's been waterboarding, sleep deprivation, forced exposure to heat and cold, extreme heat and cold, prolonged stress positions, threats of rape and in fact actual rape or sexual assault, hours of being subjected to blaring music. Prisoners have suffered humiliation, degradation, being stripped in front of inmates and guards, sexually harassed, and denied the right to even sit down for extreme periods such as 20 hours a day.
In a more recent move in 2019, retirement pension payments for Al-Razeen prisoners were suspended, according to the International Center for Justice and Human Rights. The decision might not only have devastating results on the prisoners, but also on their families, putting them under severe financial pressure in the absence of their primary breadwinner. The UAE has been striving to cultivate the image of a peaceful country that cherishes human rights of its citizens. However, the existence of just one prison like Al-Razeen is enough to prove it wrong.
الحادث اللي حدث مؤلم جدا لجميع السعوديين.